The night she saved the devil rain fell like shattered glass across the empty streets of Manhattan, glinting under the flickering neon signs of closed bars. April Collins pulled her thin jacket tighter as she hurried toward her car, exhaustion settling in her bones after a double shift at the restaurant. Her only thought was getting home to her daughter, Mia, who was sleeping at their neighbor's apartment across the hall. But when she reached her old Honda, her heart stuttered. Sprawled across the hood was a man, motionless, bleeding, and unmistakably dangerous even in the half-light. The sharp lines of his suit screamed wealth, but the bruises blooming along his jaw told another story. She took a cautious step closer, recognizing him from whispered rumors and newspaper headlines. Nikolai Petro, the man whose name was spoken only behind closed doors. "Oh, God," she whispered. The faint sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Police. If they found him like this, if she was here, there would be questions. And questions around a man like Nikolai could get anyone killed. Before she could talk herself out of it, April unlocked the passenger door and half-dragged, half-lifted his heavy body inside. He groaned, his head lolling against the seat. She pressed her foot to the gas and drove into the rain, her heart pounding so hard it drowned out the storm. By the time she reached the high-rise address she found in his wallet, her hands were trembling. The doorman didn't even blink. "Miss Collins, right this way," he said smoothly, pressing the elevator button. She froze. She hadn't given her name. Inside the penthouse, she was met with silence and glass. Floor-to-ceiling windows, cold marble, and the faint smell of expensive whiskey. She managed to ease him onto the couch before searching for a first aid kit. When she returned, he was still, his face pale but striking beneath the dim lights. She dabbed at the blood on his temple, muttering under her breath, "You better not die on me, Mr. Mafia." His eyes snapped open, cold, pale blue. His hand shot out, catching her wrist before she could pull back. "Who sent you?" His voice was low, controlled, terrifying. "No one," she said quickly. "You were lying on my car. I didn't want the police to find you." He studied her for a long, tense moment before releasing her. "You work at my restaurant," he said finally. "The hostess with the daughter?" The way he said it, like he knew every detail about her life, sent a shiver down her spine. "You need rest," she said, stepping back. "And I need to get home." "It's late," he replied. "Stay, guest room, down the hall." And before she could argue, he was gone, his footsteps silent down the corridor. Exhaustion finally won. April curled up on the massive guest bed, telling herself she'd leave at dawn. She woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then everything came back. She found Nikolai in the kitchen, wearing a black t-shirt, sleeves pushed up to reveal ink along his arms. He moved with quiet control, flipping eggs like a man who commanded armies but still knew how to cook breakfast. "Your clothes are on the chair," he said without looking at her. "I had them cleaned. You didn't have to. You helped me. I return favors." His tone was clipped, businesslike. But when his eyes met hers, there was something unreadable there. Not gratitude exactly, but awareness. "Why did you help me, April?" "Because you needed it," she said softly. "And because no one else would." He studied her for a long time, then nodded once, as if she'd passed a test she didn't know she was taking. When she finally got home to Maya, her old car had been fixed, repainted, and gleaming in the morning sun. Taped to the door handle was a note written in sharp, elegant handwriting. "Thank you for last night." NP April didn't know it yet, but that night had changed everything. And the next morning, when a knock echoed through her apartment door, she opened it to find Nikolai Petro standing there, holding her daughter's lost school scarf in his hand, his protection. Her fear, April thought, that night had been a strange, one-time mistake, a story she'd never tell anyone. She'd saved a dangerous man, and he'd thanked her. End of story. But life had other plans. 2 weeks later, she walked into Vela, the luxury restaurant where she worked, and the air shifted. Every employee was standing straighter, quieter. The air smelled of tension and expensive cologne. And sitting at table 1, the one reserved for people too powerful for waiting lists, was him, Nikolai Petro. He looked calm, unreadable, dressed in a tailored black suit that made the entire room seem smaller. His icy blue eyes found her the moment she stepped through the door. April's stomach flipped. She quickly looked away, trying to pretend he was just another customer. But when her manager rushed out of the office, nearly tripping over himself, and said, "April, Mr. Petro would like to see you at his table," she froze. The whispering began immediately. No one ever met the boss by name. No one got called to his table. "Sit," he said when she reached him. His voice was calm, but it left no room for argument. She sat, pulse thundering in her ears. He leaned back, eyes scanning her face like he was reading her thoughts. "You've been late 3 times this week," he said simply. She blinked. My daughter's been sick, He raised a hand. "You don't need to explain." "I know. You know?" "Mia, 8 years old. Asthma since she was 4. You live on West 43rd, apartment 5A. He said it so casually it chilled her to the bone. Why do you know that?" she whispered. "Because anyone who touches my life, even by accident, gets protected." His eyes softened slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Someone followed you home last night. A man from the portside crew. I handled it." April's blood ran cold. "What do you mean you handled it?" He didn't answer. Just took a slow sip of wine. "From now on, you don't walk home alone. A car will take you and your daughter wherever you need to go. No arguments." She shook her head, trying to process what she was hearing. "You can't just control my life like that. I'm not part of your world." "You were," he said, leaning forward slightly, his tone soft but unshakable. "The moment you pulled me out of that alley, you became part of it. Whether you wanted to or not, the rest of the shift blurred by." Her coworkers looked at her differently, some envious, others afraid. That night, when the sleek black car appeared outside her apartment building, April refused to get in. She took Mia's hand and walked home instead, her heart pounding the whole way. But at 2 a.m., she woke to the sound of breaking glass. She ran to Mia's room. A brick lay on the floor beneath the window. Wrapped in paper, on it, scrawled in red ink, were 4 words. "You saved the wrong man." Her shaking hands dialed the only number she could think of, the one printed neatly on the back of the note Nikolai had left her weeks ago. He answered on the first ring. "April?" Her voice cracked. Someone broke into my apartment. Don't move." 20 minutes later, black cars filled the street. Men in dark suits swept the building as if they owned it. Nikolai was the last to arrive. His eyes burned with fury as he looked at the shattered window. "You were followed again," he said coldly. "They're sending warnings now. You shouldn't have walked home alone." "You can't keep doing this," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't ask for protection. I just want to live quietly." "Quiet isn't safe anymore," he said. "They think you matter to me, and maybe they're right." She froze. His gaze softened for a moment, and then he turned toward the door. "Pack some things. You and your daughter are staying somewhere secure." "With you?" she asked before she could stop herself. "Under my roof," he said simply, "until this is over." As the men carried their bags downstairs, April caught sight of Mia peeking out from behind the bedroom door, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Mom," Mia whispered. "Who's that man?" April looked toward Nikolai, who stood in the doorway. Tall, silent, unyielding, someone, she said softly, who doesn't forget when you save his life. But as they drove into the night toward an unknown mansion beyond the city, April couldn't shake the fear curling inside her chest, that she wasn't being protected anymore, she was being claimed. Under his roof, the car rolled through the iron gates of Nikolai Petro's mansion just before dawn. April stared through the tinted glass as massive stone lions stood guard by the entrance, their eyes catching the first rays of morning. It didn't look like a home. It looked like a fortress. Mia slept in her lap, her tiny hand gripping April's arm. Every nerve in April's body screamed that this was wrong, that she should have said no, but she couldn't forget the brick through the window, the threat written in red. Whoever they were, they knew where she lived. The car door opened and Nikolai's voice cut through her thoughts. "Come inside." No one can touch you here." She followed him through tall marble halls, lined with portraits of men whose eyes looked too much like his. Powerful, ruthless, watching everything. Maids bowed when he passed, and bodyguards stood silent in corners like shadows. He gestured toward a wide staircase. "You'll stay on the 3rd floor. Mia's room is next to yours. The staff has orders not to disturb you unless you call." "This isn't necessary," April said quietly. "We can't just live here like prisoners." "You're not prisoners," he said. "You're safe." But the way he said it made her wonder if he believed there was a difference. For the next few days, April tried to blend into the silence of the mansion. She helped Mia settle into her room. Soft toys, pink blankets, a window overlooking the gardens. Nikolai's staff treated her with respect, but also with distance, as if she were something delicate or dangerous. One morning, she wandered into the library, a vast room that smelled of leather and old secrets. Nikolai was there, sitting by the fire reading. Without looking up, he said, "You're awake earlier than usual." "Couldn't sleep," she said. "Your guards keep walking past my door. That's their job. And what's mine?" she asked softly. He finally looked up. "To stay alive." The way he said it sent a shiver through her. That night, after putting Mia to bed, April stepped out onto the balcony. The garden below shimmered with lights, and beyond the fence she could see the faint outline of cars, his men, watching the perimeter. She was safe, yes, but trapped. She didn't hear Nikolai approach, until his shadow stretched beside hers. "You're not used to silence," he said quietly. "Silence feels like waiting," she replied. He leaned on the railing next to her, his expression unreadable. "You did something few people have ever done. You acted without fear. You saw a man everyone else runs from and chose to help him." She looked at him, surprised. "I didn't even know who you were." "That's why it meant something," he said, his voice low. "People only help me when they want something." "You didn't." Their eyes met in the dim light, and for a moment the space between them felt charged, fragile, forbidden. Then his phone buzzed. He answered, his tone sharp and cold. "Speak." A pause. His jaw tightened. "When?" He hung up, his demeanor changing instantly. "What happened?" April asked. "Someone tried to poison one of my men tonight. Same method they used when they went after me." Her heart skipped. "So this is about you, not me." "It's about both of us now," he said. "They think you saw something that night. Something you shouldn't have." April frowned, confused. "I just found you in that alley. Bleeding, half-conscious." He cut her off, eyes dark. "You found me after they tried to finish me. They were supposed to make sure no one survived, including witnesses." She felt her throat tighten. "You mean they were going to kill me too?" "They still might," he said, stepping closer. "Unless I stop them first." His words carried a promise and a warning. Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from below. April spun toward the door, heart pounding. Nikolai drew a gun from under his jacket, his face turning to steel. "Stay here," he ordered, but she grabbed his arm. "You can't go alone." His cold blue eyes softened just slightly. "I won't. Not when you're here." He pressed a small silver key into her palm. "If anything happens, take Mia and go to the red door at the end of the hall. Don't look back." And then he was gone, disappearing down the corridor like a ghost into the night. April stood frozen, clutching the key, praying she'd never need to use it. But deep down, she knew. This house wasn't a safe haven anymore. It was about to become the battleground for something much darker. The storm at dawn, the sound of footsteps thundered down the hallway, heavy, fast, and getting closer. April's pulse quickened as she grabbed Mia from bed, whispering urgently, "Stay quiet, baby, okay?" The little girl nodded, clutching her mother's shirt. Gunshots cracked somewhere below, one, then two, then a burst that rattled the chandelier above them. April's mind spun, her body trembling, but instinct took over. She gripped the small silver key Nikolai had given her and ran. The mansion that had seemed so vast and beautiful a few hours ago now felt like a maze built to trap her. Shadows shifted across the walls as armed men rushed through the corridors, shouting in a language she didn't understand. When she reached the red door at the end of the hall, she turned the key. It clicked softly, and the door swung inward, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. "Hold on to me," April whispered, descending quickly with Mia in her arms. The air grew cooler, the sounds of chaos above fading until they were only distant echoes. At the bottom of the stairs, another door waited. She pushed it open and froze. Nikolai stood there, a pistol in one hand, blood on his sleeve, eyes burning like ice. "You followed orders," he said, breathless but steady. "Good. What's happening?" she demanded. "Who are those people?" His jaw tightened. "The ones who tried to finish what they started the night you found me. They're led by someone who wants to take everything from me. And now, because you helped me, they'll come after you to make me bleed." April's stomach turned. "I don't want to be a part of this. I just want Mia safe." Nikolai stepped closer, lowering his weapon slightly. "You already are part of it. But I promise you this. No one touches your daughter while I'm breathing." Before she could reply, his radio buzzed. A rough voice crackled through. "Boss, East Wing's down!" 3 hostiles left. "But—" A burst of static interrupted, followed by gunfire. "They're coming for the lower levels!" Nikolai cursed under his breath and turned to April. "Get in the car now." "Where?" "Out through the service tunnel. My men will clear the way." She didn't argue. Gripping Mia's hand, she followed him into the dim passage lit by flickering bulbs. The sound of distant gunfire echoed through the concrete. April's heart pounded in her throat. Each step felt like walking closer to something she didn't understand. At the tunnel's end, a black SUV idled with headlights off. Nikolai opened the back door for April and Maya. "Stay low," he said. As soon as they climbed in, a voice shouted from behind them, sharp, mocking. "Leaving so soon, Petrov?" April turned just in time to see a tall man step from the shadows. His suit was immaculate, his expression calm, but his eyes were cruel, cold in a way Nikolai's never were. Nikolai stiffened. "Rinaldo?" The man smiled. "Still playing protector, I see. But you should know. The woman who saved you?" She was seen. "That makes her leverage." "She's under my protection," Nikolai said quietly, raising his gun. Rinaldo's smirk deepened. "Then I guess you're predictable, old friend." Before he could fire, Nikolai lunged. The 2 men clashed, shots echoing through the tunnel. April ducked down, shielding Mia as the windshield shattered. Nikolai's driver started the engine, tires screeching as they sped down the narrow exit. "Mama, I'm scared," Mia cried, burying her face in April's shoulder. "I know, sweetheart. I know." Nikolai climbed into the SUV seconds later, bleeding from his shoulder but alive. His breathing was ragged, his hands gripping the wheel as he drove through the storm outside. Rain pelted the windows, thunder rolling like artillery. "You're hurt," April said, reaching for him. "Just a scratch," he muttered, eyes fixed on the road. "We can't go to any hospital. Too many eyes. We'll go to a safe house. And then what? You keep running forever?" He didn't answer at first. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Not forever. Just until I end this." April glanced at him, anger and fear warring inside her. "You think killing Rinaldo will fix everything? You'll just start another war." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Maybe, but at least you and Mia won't be targets anymore." The rain poured harder, blurring the world outside. For the first time, April realized how deeply she'd been pulled into his world. A world of loyalty, vengeance, and shadows. Yet beneath all that darkness, something else had formed, something fragile but real. She had seen the way he looked at her, not like another pawn in his empire, but like someone he couldn't afford to lose. As the car disappeared into the storm, April glanced at Mia asleep in her arms and whispered to herself, "We're not safe yet, but maybe we're not lost either." And somewhere deep down she knew. When morning came, everything would change. The final dawn. The rain hadn't stopped all night. It came down in cold, unrelenting sheets as Nikolai's black SUV crawled up a gravel road into the forest. The city lights were miles behind them now. Nothing but darkness and mist surrounded the narrow cabin that waited ahead. April held Mia close, her hand trembling slightly against the child's hair. Nikolai's shoulder was still bleeding through the bandage she'd hastily tied with one of Mia's scarves. "You need a hospital," April said quietly as they stepped out of the car. "No hospitals," he replied, voice low but steady. "There's a doctor here. Someone I trust." Trust. It was such a strange word coming from a man like him, a word that seemed to mean something entirely different in his world. Still, when the cabin door opened to reveal a gray-haired man with kind eyes and steady hands, April felt her shoulders loosen just a little. Dr. Vasquez treated Nikolai's wound in silence while April made tea in the tiny kitchen, her thoughts racing. Every few minutes, Mia peeked at Nikolai, her small face worried. When the doctor finally left, the air between April and Nikolai felt heavier, like the calm before something irreversible. "You should rest," she said softly. "Whoever those men were, they might come back." "They won't," he replied. His tone was too certain, too final. "Rinaldo won't stop chasing ghosts. And when morning comes, there will be nothing left of him to chase." April frowned, stepping closer. "You're going to kill him, aren't you?" He looked at her then, really looked. For a long moment, the mask slipped. "He killed my father, betrayed my family, and he tried to poison me the night you found me. This doesn't end until one of us is gone." Her voice trembled, but she didn't back away. "And what happens to you after that? You think vengeance will suddenly make you free?" His gaze softened. "Freedom doesn't exist for men like me, but you and Mia, you could still have it." "What are you saying?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope, setting it on the table. "Inside is enough money to move anywhere. New names, new start. It's clean. You'll never have to look over your shoulder again." April stared at it like it was something poisonous. "You think money fixes this? Fixes the fact that I've been running for my life because I helped you?" "No," he said quietly. "I think it fixes the part where you keep paying for my mistakes." Thunder cracked outside, startling Mia awake. She rubbed her eyes and looked at them both, confused. "Mama, what's happening?" April forced a smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. Just thunder." But when she looked back, Nikolai was gone. Her heart seized. She ran to the window just in time to see him walking into the rain, his black coat whipping in the wind. "Nikolai!" she shouted, but he didn't turn. By the time she found him again, dawn was breaking, the first pale light filtering through the clouds as the storm began to fade. The old harbor lay silent except for the distant crash of waves. Rinaldo was waiting by the water, flanked by two men. Both had guns drawn. "You should have stayed dead, Petrov," Rinaldo called out. "But I suppose your ego wouldn't let that happen." Nikolai's voice was calm. "Let her go, Rinaldo. She has nothing to do with this." Rinaldo smirked. "On the contrary, that little waitress made you weak. She made you hesitate, and that's why you'll die here." The next second was chaos. Gunfire split the morning air. April screamed as bullets tore through the mist. Nikolai moved fast, almost impossibly so, dropping one guard before the second could reload. Rinaldo fired, once, twice, one shot grazing Nikolai's side, the other hitting a post behind him. April ran forward before she could think. "Stop!" she shouted. "Please, stop this!" But it was already too late. Nikolai's gun was steady, his eyes cold and clear. When Rinaldo lifted his weapon again, Nikolai fired. One clean shot that ended it all. The echo rolled across the empty harbor like the last breath of a dying storm. For a long time, no one spoke. Nikolai stood there, shoulders rising and falling with each breath, until the gun slipped from his hand and clattered to the wet ground. April ran to him, catching him as he stumbled. "You're bleeding again." "Doesn't matter," he murmured, his eyes finding hers. "It's done." "You can't go back now," she whispered, tears mixing with the rain. He smiled faintly, the first real smile she'd seen from him. I never planned to. Sirens wailed in the distance, too close, too fast. He touched her cheek with trembling fingers. Take Mia. Go to the cabin. Vasquez will help you disappear. No, I'm not leaving you. His thumb brushed away her tears. You already saved me once, April. Now let me return the favor. She wanted to argue, to refuse. But one look at him told her the truth. This was the end he had chosen long before he ever met her. As the police lights painted the horizon red and blue, April took Mia's hand and ran. Weeks later, in a small coastal town where no one knew her name, April sat by a window overlooking the sea. Mia laughed nearby, chasing waves with a handmade kite. A knock came at the door. She froze, then slowly opened it. A man stood there in a gray coat, holding an envelope. Delivery from New York, he said simply, handing it to her before walking away. Inside, she found a single photo, her and Mia at the restaurant, taken without her noticing. On the back were 4 words written in neat, careful handwriting. You gave me peace. April pressed the photo to her chest, tears filling her eyes as the wind carried the scent of salt and freedom through the room. For the first time in years, she let herself breathe. And somewhere beneath the quiet hum of the waves, she could almost hear Nikolai's voice. Calm, steady, eternal.